Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today. So let's start off talking about the draft, because of course, the draft begins this week. It begins on Friday night on SmackDown on Fox. A big time of year that everyone's excited about because it does feel like a refresh. It does feel like something different. It does feel like, just a bit of a reset, doesn't it? And maybe that's particularly on like the Raw side of things, we might be seeing, a different roster, different people, different storylines, just something different. And I think that's what a lot of wrestling fans are always looking for. Something different, something new, something fresh. We have some big news when it comes about the draft this week, particularly the involvement of NXT, the developmental brand NXT 2.0, whatever you may call it, is going to be involved in this year's draft. So the WWE Draft is set to start this week in a two-night event starting on SmackDown on Friday and concluding the following Monday on Raw. Now, the SmackDown show, of course, will be held at the Royal Farms Arena in Baltimore, Maryland, and the Raw show will be held at the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, on the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer radio show, Dave Meltzer has reported that Fox and USA Network are informed of the, quote, key people that will be switching brands during the draft. He also noted that NXT stars will be included in the draft in an effort to freshen up some rosters. However, it was also noted that things could change at any time. I think that Dave is putting that in there, to be honest, because his track record recently is iffy, to say the least. A lot of things he said recently, particularly Meltzer, about WWE, not so much with AEW, certainly with WWE, haven't come to pass or have just been proved to be factually inaccurate. So I think when he's saying things could change at any time, it's him saying, well, I've been caught out a few times recently. I've got to make sure that either I get something right, or if I don't get it right, I have to basically say why I didn't get it right. But he's saying that Fox and USA know the big stars that they're going to get, or the big stars that are going to be leaving their brand as well, which is important too, kind of soften the blow, as it were. But also that NXT is going to be involved as well. Now, of course, local ads for Friday have advertised Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre for the Universal Championship. The match has not been officially announced and might just be a dark match, entirely possible. But it does hint, of course, that Drew McIntyre could be drafted to SmackDown during the show. Now, with Big E being the WWE champion, him being drafted to Raw is expected to be formally announced, so he'll be officially selected by Raw, even though he's now a member of the Raw roster. Now, Big E, of course, defended the WWE Championship last night against Bobby Lashley. We'll get into that in a second. But various, of course, NXT stars for the last however many months, throughout the entirety of the summer really, especially with the return of live crowds, and even prior to that, those dark matches at the Thunderdome, of course, have seen various NXT stars working dark matches before SmackDown and Raw over the past month, including the likes of Austin Theory, Casey Catanzaro, Xia Li, Aaliyah, Dakota Kai, Davey Boy Smith Jr. worked a dark match before SmackDown, that very first SmackDown back, and then disappeared. Maybe he will be officially drafted and reintroduced during that time period, or maybe the plans are for him to be reintroduced after the draft with the season premieres of Raw or SmackDown or wherever that may be. But Davey Boy Smith is still signed to WWE. I think people almost forget that. Like, he just randomly appeared in that dark match prior to SmackDown, did an interview backstage on WWE social media platforms, and we just haven't seen him since. It's just very, very, very odd. But NXT being involved in the draft is interesting. Now, when I say involved in the draft, primarily it means that stars are going to be going up to the main roster as opposed to in the past with the hope there was going to be some kind of, or maybe some stars from the main roster will go down to NXT. Not going to happen. If anything, it would make me think more about those established names that are currently on the NXT brand right now are probably going to get called up. We know the vision and the style and the type of person that WWE are looking for when it comes to NXT right now. They're looking for Bron Breakker. They're looking to have a roster of Bron Breakkers, essentially. They're looking to have guys or girls from athletic backgrounds, from fitness model backgrounds, bodybuilding backgrounds, etc., that aren't independent pro wrestlers. They want to pick them out of their respective fields, whether it's the NBA or the NFL or whatever it may be. They want to pick them from there, drop them into the world of WWE, teach them how to wrestle in the WWE style of things, get them into the WWE system, flood NXT with that, and then eventually bring them up to the main roster. That's what they want to do. So I would think right now, any name that's on NXT that's kind of against what we would usually perceive to be what this current version of NXT stars look like could absolutely be called up to the main roster. So I look at names like Pete Dunne, I look at names like Johnny Gargano, I look at those names and think, well, maybe their time has come. They've been on NXT for a while. Maybe it's time for them to go up to the main roster. Tommaso Ciampa, of course, isn't going anywhere anytime soon, but those kind of names I think would be interesting. Again, I think the names of even a Samoa Joe is interesting. If NXT is going to be involved in the draft, Joe doesn't fit into the current vision for NXT at all. We know he is technically under a talent contract as well as a scout and working at the Performance Center, etc. But who's to say that he doesn't get drafted to Raw or SmackDown? That's a possibility too. So it does open up certainly the realm of exciting possibilities. And look, we've seen a lot of new characters just debut in NXT. So they've got those new characters coming in have to be made room for, and I guess they will be made room for by people going to the main roster as part of the draft. Again, I don't know if it's going to be a case of they're just included in the draft pools. That's how they've done it the last few years, of they're just including in the draft pools. I think that could be a situation. But names like Austin Theory, certainly, those kind of names I do expect to see in there. So certainly interesting, and we're going to be doing a lot of coverage for that heading into the event beginning on Friday. Monday Night Raw last night, once again, for the second or however many weeks in a row, Raw, and again, that standard is low, but for Raw was pretty good. I mean, overall, there were some segments that were good. There were obviously some segments that were bad. That's Monday Night Raw. It's far from a perfect show. It will probably never be a perfect show, especially whilst it's 3 hours long and the way that WWE creates the product that they do. But in credit to WWE and credit to those on Raw that write the show, produce the show, etc., it wasn't a bad show. One of the big talking points on last night's show was the return of the Hurt Business, because it looks like WWE's one of their top factions is back in business. During Big E and Bobby Lashley's WWE Championship match on last night's edition of Raw to open the show, Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander appeared at ringside wearing their Hurt Business t-shirts and ring attire. Lashley had kicked Benjamin and Alexander out of the Hurt Business on Raw back in March. MVP, of course, is also part of the group, but he's out of action with an injury right now. In storyline, it's because of the ribs. In reality, it's because of a surgery on his knee. Big E's New Day stablemates, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, ran out to brawl with Benjamin and Alexander after they appeared. I had kind of flashbacks to being like, oh no, we're going to see the New Day versus the Hurt Business once again, because we had seen Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods versus Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander so many times over the course of the last 12 months. I get throwing Big E in there is a little bit different, but man, I was having flashbacks to that. So that match ended in a no contest. It then led to Adam Pearce announcing that Big E would defend his WWE Championship against Lashley in a steel cage main event later on during the show, which of course he won. But it's exciting. It's exciting to see the Hurt Business back. WWE's so weird, aren't they? Because I looked at this and obviously it was great to see them back, and it was like, good, they're back. They should be back. But it kind of just reminded you of like, they split up in March, so that's what they're nearly at the end of September, so 6 months ago-ish. And it just made me feel like, okay, you brought them back now, but why did you split them up in the first place? Why? It's such a silly move that, again, it's one of those decisions, and we've seen this happen a lot over the years, certainly in the recent years with WWE, whereby, when you see a gimmick on the television, I always bring it back to like Shorty G, but those kind of things, he brings it back and you just go, this gimmick just isn't going to work. I can tell you this isn't going to work. Or I can tell you that this is a bad decision or this is a bad move. And that's what it was like with the Hurt Business when they decided to split them up back in March. Everyone universally went, that's a bad move, or that isn't needed, or certainly that isn't needed anytime soon. Why are you doing it? Even Bobby Lashley and MVP themselves went to Vince McMahon and begged and pleaded with him, don't do this. There is way, way, way more money to be made here. We're one of the best and hottest acts on the show. We've carried you during the Thunderdome period of Monday Night Raw. The only good things on Raw at the time were Drew McIntyre and the Hurt Business, really, and you're trying to ruin that and throw it away. It was bizarre. And obviously it was silly, and now they bring them back, and it's like, great, but earlier this year, you got rid of them. You've already told your audience that Benjamin and Alexander aren't good enough, and now what, they're good enough again? In a way, it almost makes Lashley look weak, and it makes Benjamin and Alexander look weak as well. It's bizarre. Look, I'm happy to have them back. They were a great faction. They should have never, ever been split up in the first place. I'm interested to see how they're going to carry on this storyline, especially with MVP being out of the picture right now. Maybe he comes back and he didn't approve this. I don't know. I want to see the Hurt Business back. I want to see more members of the Hurt Business. And I think it is a good thing because it gives Lashley something to do whilst not being the WWE champion. One of my big concerns with Lashley in this post WWE Championship reign was that, well, what's he going to be doing now? He shouldn't fall back into obscurity. He shouldn't just be doing nothing. Now, obviously, he's got a big match at Crown Jewel, but also I still want to see him being a featured player on the show, and he achieves that by being with the Hurt Business. So I'm very, very, very glad to see them back on my television screens. Speaking of Raw, it ended last night with Drew McIntyre confronting Big E because Drew McIntyre has called out WWE Champion Big E and the Universal Champion Roman Reigns as well. Now, last night on the post-Extreme Rules edition of Monday Night Raw, Big E retained his WWE Championship over Bobby Lashley in a steel cage main event, which was very, very good as to be expected. Now, after the match, Big E celebrated until Drew McIntyre's music interrupted. He came to the entranceway with his sword, Angela. McIntyre raised the sword and pointed to the ring at Big E, who was staring back at him. Raw then went off the air with McIntyre and Big E mouthing at each other. So it looks like McIntyre is now going after the WWE Championship. Again, it depends what brand he's going to be on. He might not be on Monday Night Raw to challenge for the WWE Championship anyway. It might be a bit of a swerve because I still think that McIntyre goes to SmackDown and faces off against Roman Reigns. McIntyre, it's just a really odd one. It's a really odd one with Drew McIntyre because this was a guy that, coming into WrestleMania last year, red hot, and it sucks what happened with the pandemic, and he didn't get his moment in front of the crowd, and he carried Monday Night Raw throughout the pandemic, but he couldn't feel less hot right now. He really couldn't feel less hot right now, and even having him been away from the WWE Championship picture for a few months, of course, he lost to Lashley at June at Hell in a Cell, and because of that, he couldn't challenge for the WWE Championship whilst Lashley was the champion. They had to do that because the crowd was already turning, and they weren't even there yet, because it was like, why is McIntyre getting all of these opportunities when he keeps losing over and over and over again? And it did feel like when McIntyre showed up last night here we go again, McIntyre's going to be back again, that kind of thing, and it was just that's what it kind of felt like last night, And I don't know if it means turning McIntyre heel. I don't know what it would mean, but it does, doesn't it? Kind of feel like here we go again, right? Here we go again kind of situation. And I don't know. I think the best thing for McIntyre is to just completely do something fresh, go to a different show, go to SmackDown, do something different. I don't know if that will necessarily happen. We'll have to wait and see when it comes to Friday. But, McIntyre versus Big E is an interesting feud. Don't get me wrong. I just don't really know if I have the interest in seeing McIntyre back in the picture just yet. But we'll have to wait and see. Speaking of Monday Night Raw, though, and a former WWE champion, because we have a big update when it comes to Goldberg and Bobby Lashley and the plans for both of them when it comes to Crown Jewel, and that match is happening. The SummerSlam rematch, Goldberg versus Lashley 2, unfortunately is going to happen because, as expected, WWE Hall of Famer Bill Goldberg and Bobby Lashley's rematch is reportedly scheduled to take place at Crown Jewel. Now, last night on Monday Night Raw, Goldberg joined the show via satellite and issued a warning to Lashley over what happened to his son Gage at SummerSlam after Lashley defeated the Hall of Famer. Now, Goldberg talked about how he swore to protect Gage from birth and how he would do everything in his power to protect him. He also said he will now fulfill the promise he made to his wife, his son, and to Lashley by hurting Lashley real bad for what he did. Lashley also added that if he's lucky enough, he's going to even kill him. I mean, he said he was going to kill Bobby Lashley. It's just ridiculous. It's just so ridiculous. Like, isn't that Pro Wrestling 101? Isn't that Pro Wrestling 101? Don't ever say something that you know you can't do. It's still, come on, as if Bill Goldberg was going to do that. As if we're going to see murder in the middle of the ring in Crown Jewel. Come on. It's just, I was that promo, when he said that, I was like, oh. And even the crowd, they had to pipe in some cheers when he said that, because it was like, okay. Okay, yeah, because, yeah, and to be honest here, like, if this was a shoot, and I hate to be that guy, but if this was a shoot, in what reality is Bill Goldberg going to destroy Bobby Lashley? Bill Goldberg was like 55 years old. Lashley's 10 years younger than him and twice the size of him. Seriously? And he's a Bellator fighter. He technically still might even be under contract. But Goldberg's going to be able to, like, murder him in the ring? Come on. Ridiculous. Goldberg could barely walk. It's just, that promo I just looked at, was like, oh, it's so silly. It's so silly. But he ended his promo by declaring he's going to enjoy every single second of the process because Gage is his son and Lashley is about to become the victim. Well, in an update, PW Insider reports that the Goldberg segment on Raw was the first major step in building to Lashley versus Goldberg at Crown Jewel in October in Saudi Arabia. Again, no surprise. I mean, I said that this match was going to happen, even though he's good for 2 matches per year. It's possible that WWE negotiated a change to the contract, probably because, again, of that Saudi money. We know if it's a Saudi show, Goldberg's on it. Why? Because he gets so much money for being on it. WWE gets so much money for being on it, and the people that run those Saudi shows, the Saudi government, the Saudi crown prince, they want to have the big legends on the show, and one of them is Bill Goldberg. So that's why. So Goldberg's on the show, and he's going to face Lashley. My concern is now, given that Goldberg, even at 55 years old, brother, still needs to be protected and go over, and he's lost his last couple of matches on WWE TV, Lashley isn't the WWE champion anymore. I see Goldberg winning, which is terrifying, because he shouldn't, because Goldberg's going to win, and then he's going to disappear again. And what does that do for Lashley? He's just lost his WWE Championship. He just lost to Big E on Raw, and he's going to lose to Goldberg as well in 3 minutes at Crown Jewel, and then Goldberg's going to disappear. Oh, that's going to really help Lashley stay over after his WWE Championship reign. But that's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do. You can already see it. You can already see it happening. Speaking of Raw last night, Keith Lee returned as Keith Bearcat Lee. He's officially arrived on Raw. Now, after being away from television since the August 2nd Raw victory over Karrion Kross, Lee returned during last night's Raw with the new Bearcat nickname. He interrupted Akira Tozawa, who was in the ring and upset with him failing to defeat WWE 24/7 champion Reggie, demanding a match of R-Truth, Drake Maverick, Drew Gulak, or anyone else. Keith Lee, once again sporting his beard, came out and easily dominated Tozawa, destroying him and putting him away with the power slam on his shoulders in the middle of the ring. He then marched to the back without saying anything. Now, again, I've seen some people this is what I look. I will criticize WWE for what I think is bad stuff. I will criticize WWE for what I think is bad creative or bad television. But when you look at this and you just refuse to do your research, you see that and you go, that's a stupid nickname. I hate it. And it's like, well, the Bearcat nickname is probably a reference to Bearcat Wright, a popular African-American pro wrestler in the 1950s and 60s. He was posthumously inducted into the Hall of Fame Legacy Wing in 2017. It could be a reference to Bearcat Brown, who was also an innovative African-American wrestler who worked mainly in Memphis in the 1960s or 70s. It's homage. It's like carrying the mantle. It's an honor. And people are going to hate it. What bad creative? What this? What that? No, come on. You've got someone dressed up as a superhero on the show and all that kind of stuff. You've got Goldberg saying he's going to murder someone and you're upset over a nickname? Seriously? You know, there are plenty of things. You have to learn for your hill to die on when it comes to WWE, and this isn't one of it. I'm happy to see Keith Lee on the show. I'm happy to see Keith Lee being featured. At least he's not wearing a mask or something like that and carrying Cross just yet, so I'll take it. Let's switch gears here and talk about Alexa Bliss, because it looks like Alexa Bliss is going to be off of WWE television very soon, because Alexa Bliss will reportedly be taking some time off WWE TV soon. Now, this was exclusively reported by Raj Giri over at Wrestling Inc. Bliss was defeated by Charlotte Flair at Extreme Rules on Sunday. After the match, Flair destroyed Bliss's doll Lily. It's not known if this was to write Bliss off of television, but in a post-match interview, Flair said that ripping up the doll was a wake-up call for Bliss. It was then reported by Giri at Wrestling Inc. that Bliss will be off television and was told it would be for a few months. So we don't know why. I don't know why she's going to be off TV, but she is going to be. She's got some time off for a couple of months. I think it might mark the end of this version of the Alexa Bliss character. I think we're probably going to see something different from her when she comes back. That older version, a different version. I mentioned this in yesterday's video talking about the fallout from Extreme Rules, is that I felt that this was going to be the end of the Firefly Funhouse and the last sort of remnants of Bray Wyatt were going to disappear. I think that's probably why, unless Bliss comes back and just carries on like nothing happens. We could see that too. But I think it's likely that Bliss will come back and be something different. Finally, we have an update when it comes to the Royal Rumble in January. We've got another Saturday pay-per-view to expect in a stadium by WWE. The 2022 Royal Rumble pay-per-view has been announced for St. Louis. It was announced yesterday that the Rumble will take place on Saturday, January 29, 2022 from the Dome at America's Center in St. Louis, Missouri. This marks the largest event to hold the Royal Rumble ever. The Dome's full stadium setup holds 67,277 fans for NFL games and 40,000 for the other half stadium setup events for such as games like basketball games. Tickets will go on sale Friday, October 15 at 11 a.m. Eastern Time via Ticketmaster. So it's very exciting. I mean, I really enjoy those Royal Rumble shows being inside stadiums, and let's just hope that things when it comes to crowds are under control, that they can do that then. Obviously, they did the stadium show in August in Vegas, but it's different doing that in the summer as opposed to the winter. We know that, but exciting, very exciting, and I'm all for more Saturday pay-per-view events. As someone that has to stay up late over here in the UK, more Saturday events are fine by me. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these WWE news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, get the rankings, and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.